Yes, it was. You're not losing your mind.
And here we are, everyone. Yes, do not adjust your set. I am not on camera tonight, just so that you know. I am dancing the COVID a go-go again, and so masked up and just, yeah. So you get the wonderful talking spoiler room icon. But tonight, it is once again our Precode, our rated PC for Precode special. Tonight we are looking at the 1932 film Red-Headed Woman, starring Jean Harlow and Chester Morris. And looking forward to our discussion tonight. It's all part of our By Any Means. We had a wonderful discussion last week that went almost 2 hours where we talked Showgirls.
That was a great one.
For our 500th episode, and that was a lot of fun. Thank you all who chimed in. And tonight, yes, we are headed back now to 1932. And with me tonight is a wonderful crew to discuss this film. So thank you for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and popping your favorite drink with us. I'm hoping the brandy old fashioned helps kill some of the germs. So it couldn't hurt, right? But with us tonight is a wonderful crew that has been looking at a lot of these classics with me. First off, he's back with us. You heard his voice. Mr. Joe Randazzo is here with us today. Hello, Joe.
Hey, everyone.
And the guy who keeps coming back for more, my right-hand man, Mr. Ian Simmons is here. Hello, Ian.
Hello.
So glad you both could be here tonight to talk about the Red-Headed Woman. And Joe, you do these older synopses so well. Go ahead. Can you synopsize? I know you don't have a box, but
yeah, I don't even know where I put it. I had it out because I was just watching the movie a little while ago. I don't know what I did with it, but I don't think it had a synopsis anyway.
Oh, but otherwise, I could synopsis it with a like a recently modern song too. So,
what song would that be?
I ain't saying she's a gold digger, but she ain't no broke.
Glad you cut it off there, Mark.
Yeah.
Plus, I've never heard anybody sing that song quite like that before.
Well, that's the Weird Al version in the polka that he does. So,
that
censors it, but I mean, go for it, Joe.
Certainly Lily, played by Jean Harlow, will certainly fit that. In the course of this movie, she breaks up a marriage, shoots a man because he goes back to his ex-wife, has several affairs, has premarital sex, or at least it's implied.
Yeah.
With
gentlemen of all ages.
Yes. Although she does keep one around for, we learn at the end of the movie. She's a woman from the Midwest. I think they said Ohio.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she wants to better her life by any means necessary. And she's a woman who is, right at the beginning, she seduces her boss.
Yeah.
At first, it looks like it's not going to work, but then when she hears him say, "Oh, the reason I never have you around alone is because I don't trust myself around you," the light bulb goes up in her head, and she's like, "Oh, okay, that's what this is. That's what this is going to be." So she does what she can to, step her way up. There's his wife comes home, and we don't see anything. We just see his wife enter the door, and we just see Jean Harlow come out the door like a minute later, not even a minute later, like 30 seconds later. And that's all we need to know. We don't need to know anything else.
Yeah, straightening her clothes and such too. And yeah.
This is one of those movies. That's the reason the Hays Code exists. Besides that, what I enjoyed about it was the dialogue. I think the dialogue in this was. I like these kind of fast talking movies, and Jean Harlow is great at just the fast talking in this.
Yeah.
And it's this is one of those things that it's like how to like it's held like it doesn't really feel like it's held back because it does as much as they possibly could in 1932 to portray this story the
Right.
way they can. This is one of those things where if this was made now, she'd be taking her clothes off every scene. She'd be humping everybody in the movie, and nothing would be left to the imagination, which is fine if you like that. I also like Una Mercal as her best friend.
Oh, Sally is awesome.
Yeah, she's fantastic in this. But yeah, I mean, story wise, I can't really, a lot of things I feel like are more subtle than or more spoken. Like it kind of felt a little episodic because she'd kind of just move like from affair to affair, and I think that's that might be the downside of this. Is that the I felt like the story kind of felt a little disjointed. I mean, there was a through line of her and Chester Morris.
Yeah.
I'm not really doing a good job at synopsizing, and I'm just kind of saying things that happened in the movie because I'm finding it hard to like.
It's mostly about her jumping from guy to guy, using opportunities that come up best she can, and coming up with ways to kind of work her way into someone's life, these guys' lives, and be their significant other, basically gold digger. It's basically just her going from guy to guy and how she disrupts the lives of all of these higher society folks when she's not that.
And not really being able to find her way actually in the higher society. Like they do kind of spurn her every chance they get. Like the party after she leaves and she goes to see Sally, and Sally points out the window and goes, so is everybody going to be sleeping with Irene tonight? Because everybody's making a line straight for her house. So yeah, it's kind of that idea that they're like George Carlin once said, there's a big club of like the elites and you're not in it, and no matter how much she may try to work herself into it, she's never really allowed past a certain point, and that bothers her so much that she moves to New York where she's trying to hook up with two guys at once. So yeah, I appreciate the balls to go after this kind of story in 1932.
Ian, what about you and your initial thoughts with this film?
I had a real hard time not turning this movie off. This is the first time I've seen Jean Harlow in anything. And I couldn't get out of my head. Like, you just change the last name on the actress and you have the entire personage of the main character. She could have gone by Jean Harlot. I mean, you mentioned that she has a hard time like getting upper crust society to accept her. I think that's because they all see her for what she is. Yeah. She's an idiot. She's relentless. And all she does is use her body and her cunning and her deception to climb the social ladder. And they're like, no, she's scum. And why wouldn't they, have a problem with her when they took the beloved couple of their, the jewel in their upper society crown, Bill and Irene, and she broke up that marriage. And she, kind of turned Bill into this whimpering, mushy lump, which he kind of always was. I mean, he turns out to be kind of garbage too. But, Irene is never seen as anything but, a faithful wife and a good person. And you've got this tramp who comes in and kind of upsets everything. I mean, no, I was waiting for there to be any kind of like reason for me to care about what happens to Lily, aka Red, or to find some redeeming quality. But I was just waiting for her to get on the wrong side of someone and someone to put some lead in her. Whereas in the climax of the movie, she actually shoots Bill. I'm like, how dare you? Like, what is going? There is no cosmic justice in this damn thing. And she ends up with her cuck of a long-time boyfriend, the chauffeur, driving her and her latest, Mark. Not you, Mark, but Mark away at the end, and that's supposed to be our like ironic happy ending or whatever. I'm like, I don't want to finish this movie. Even though
I don't think it was intended to be a happy ending. It was because this is deemed as a comedy and drama. And when I saw that it said comedy, I'm like, it must be a different, it must be from the different time, because I saw this straight up as just like drama for most of the film. Like, and if you look at it, and this is why I was fascinated by the film, is that the film's told from the perspective of the villain.
Yeah.
The redheaded woman is not supposed to be the good person in this, the way they wrote it. She is the villain. She is the antagonist throughout this pretty much whole film. There's a moment in here when she is with her boss, and she seduces this older gentleman who has this big oil empire. Now, it's not showed explicitly what they do, but it's rather implied, because he looks like she goes to meet him, and then we cut to a scene to where he looks like a dog who just did a really bad thing. And she's talking to him going, "You're going to tell people that come to my party, right?" And so for like a brief moment, you can see her that she might be happy that she has her standing, but everybody sees through her. It's like you said, Ian. This person, it's more about how a person like this affects the people around her. More so, you're not supposed to really be pulling for your redheaded woman, which is, again, I found it kind of unusual considering some of the other films we've watched from Precode films. You're like, your main character, you're kind of pulling for it. This one, no, this is a villain story.
Oh yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, I don't mind a good villain story.
Yeah.
But this movie was co-written. There are 3 credited writers on it, and 2 of them are women.
Yeah.
Now, if I didn't know that, I would think, oh, the person who wrote this movie doesn't think very much of women, because all she does is use her sex and her cunning, and every time she doesn't get her way, or she thinks she's backed into a corner, she's just like turning on the waterworks. All the worst cliches and not so much cliches about women are on full display here, without any of the the intellect or charm or vulnerability that might make her seem like a well-rounded actual person. I mean, the other people we've talked about, in this series, they have at least that going for them, even if they're doing things by any means necessary. I hate to say it, but Elizabeth Berkley's character from Showgirls is 10 times the woman as our redheaded woman in this movie. And I never thought I'd say that. By the way, Liz Berkley, I found out, was in my city last weekend for the Fan Expo Comic-Con. And I found out like on Sunday afternoon. I'm like, damn it.
Oh man, if I knew you wanted to meet her, we were there on Friday, I would have told you. She wasn't there on Friday night, but I would have.
I think she was
there.
Yeah, I think she was there like Saturday or Sunday or something, or she was only there for 2 days. It might have been Friday, Saturday, but I'm like, nah. But then again, the prices that they charge at these damn things now, it would have turned my stomach.
Yeah, Celeste from Hex and Arcane wanted to meet William Shatner. It was $100 for a selfie, so that's
well. I was
Mark Hamill was $600 plus, so that was
yep.
Yeah, I saw that picture that it was $400, $500, or $600 to meet Mark Hamill, and I'm like, yeah, that's why I don't go to cons.
I got my shit signed for free 18 years ago. Anyway,
but going back to there was actually a line of dialogue in the movie where I forget which character actually tells her, you just use your sex to get you ahead.
Yeah,
and eventually you're not going to be able to do that anymore.
That was the most shocking thing I think of the movie, was because that was Irene, I think, telling her this.
Yeah,
it was Irene. Yeah.
Right. And just to hear her use that phrase, like, you just use sex to get ahead. I'm like, wow, they actually said the S word in one of these movies. It's all usually very implied, or there's a euphemism or something. They just come out and say it. I mean, it was just hard for me personally to get past this despicable character to fully appreciate. I mean, the performances are good. Jean Harlow was very good. I hated her so much. It was kind of the reason that I couldn't watch any movie starring Catherine Keener for about 20 years, because up until the 40-year-old version, she kept playing these like horrible people. But yeah, she did great. And our boy, what's his name? The guy from Alibi.
Chester Morris.
Yes, Chester Morris. He was
He's
good.
He for you though.
Well, but here's the thing. I liked him in this movie because I think he had some pretty good range. It was really frustrating watching him just like get up the courage to say no or to kick her out, but then that's the thing. Like there are so many attractive women in this movie. Maybe it's just supposed to be the red hair, which just shows up as gray and black and white anyway. But I'm like, really? Jean Harlow is the one that's like turning all these guys into schmucks. I would have gone for the friend or even Irene. Like Irene to me looked like Naomi Watts playing Fay Wray in Peter Jackson's King Kong.
That's actually pretty good. Yeah, she does. She does look.
I'm like, but I'm like, you're gonna leave that for this?
I think
this is science fiction now.
It's the promiscuousness of.
Yes, I was gonna say it's how hot she is compared to what she's willing to do in bed, which I would get from this movie. Like probably Jean Harlow's character is probably going to be the one that's going to be more willing to do whatever. Yeah, more wild in bed, and that's probably that's the trade-off. She might not be as physically attractive as Irene, but she's
and that's kind of what the angle I think they're trying for with this character is showing that. Yeah, when it comes to it, these guys who are prim and proper guys are still at their core guys. And if you get someone who plays to their core guy values, I'm talking within the context of 1932. They will risk their standing and their relationships and their almost their reputation for a wild time with the redheaded woman.
I mean, this movie essentially is a less nudity, far less violent version of Fatal Attraction.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, honestly, when she lifts up her stocking and she's got her garter with the flowery thing, and his picture is in her garter stocking, I'm like, no, this is when you run. That's not flattering. That's psycho.
He's like, well, where'd you get that? That'd be my question. Wait, why is my face on your stocking?
Well, and maybe again, that's also maybe partly what they were trying to go for is the fact of here are all these red flags, and yet these guys are still like, here's all these red, no pun intended with the redheaded woman, but I was
gonna say red flag woman. That's what they should have called.
But here's all the and they still give in to because she is someone who is not what they're a person they're not quite used to interacting with, because she is so forward with everything she does in her actions that the main characters, the guys that she seduces, which are at least she's with at least 4 guys. There's a reason why we had the Hays Codes after this film. She's with at least 4 guys back and forth too. In this film, maybe that's they're trying to give a bit of the cautionary tale as well. What's funny is I was reading, and apparently Fitzgerald's screenplay, he brought it to the producer, and the producer rejected it because it was too serious, because he took a more serious angle. And so then they gave it to Anita Loos to do a complete rewrite with a lighter, more comical tone. But, I found very little comedy in this film. I'm like, oh my God.
It does try to play it, I feel like very, for lack of a better word, loose. If it tries to make it feel like, it's fun and flirty. But yeah, I don't know about whether or not it achieves that all the time.
Well,
it's interesting that F. Scott Fitzgerald turns in a screenplay and the producer's like, "Oh, this is crap. You go rewrite F. Scott Fitzgerald." What'd he ever do?
and it's it's one of those things with this is where I'm like, I could see the more serious angle of it. I think they're trying to play the redheaded woman as the comic, but it just doesn't quite come off right.
It does feel like a fast talking, like Marx Brothers esque thing at some points, because that's just like almost like, I mean, this is before His Girl Friday, but she does kind of try to pull that Rosalind Russell His Girl Friday thing, where she's. I mean, a lot of movies were doing that at this time because and I guess fast talking is what's supposed to pass for comedy for some of these. But yeah, I'm with you guys in that. Like, I didn't see I've seen other films like this, like Female, with Norma Shearer and also Madam X, where you get the kind of the kind of quote unquote immoral woman, but those, especially Madam X, tends to get very dark, and this never reached like that level of darkness like that. So maybe comparatively to those, it's considered a comedy. But yeah, watching it tonight, it did feel a little lighter. But yeah, I don't know if I would have gone with maybe dramedy.
I could see dramedy.
I saw it was listed as a romantic comedy. Like, not much romantic about this.
Wow.
It'd be like calling a porno a romance, There's things going on that happen in romantic relationships, but there's no romance in this. There's no.
It would have been but it would have been funny though. A perfect comedic ending is at the end, Bill and Irene get back together, and Lily comes in and she's all upset, and Bill's dad is there and he writes her the check for $500, but Bill kind of confronts her like, this is the last time I'm ever going to have to see you. And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like trying to basically push her out of the apartment or whatever. It would have been really funny if he gave in yet again for whatever reason. And then Irene gets pissed. She pulls out a handgun from her purse and just like takes both of them out. She's like, I'm done with this. You people are losers.
The lost ending.
Yeah.
But I mean, the ending here, I guess, I agree with Mark in that I don't think it's supposed to be a happy ending. It's just kind of life goes on, and life with her is just going to be this, string of loveless relationships, except with Charles Boyer as a chauffeur. Who, I get the feeling that's, maybe that's why I kind of disagree with you that the chauffeur would be the cuck, because I feel like, well, he's always going to be the other man, while she's in these other relationships where she's basically going to be a breadwinner in a way, because she's always going to get money for them. And he's just got, he's the guy she actually wants to be with, because he's the young, attractive guy who's age appropriate for her, as opposed to the 65-year-old French guy.
Well, no, but I mean, that is, I mean, minus the sex angle, that essentially is cuckoldry. You've got a woman who
Wouldn't the other guy be the
well, no, because he wants to be in a relationship with her. It's obvious. He says, "Hey, when things fall apart with Gersty, the old man in New York, he's like, don't worry, I can give you the good life." And she's like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, I've got some money saved." She's like, "How much?" And he says, $1,500. And she's like, I'm going to go back and see if I can get things going with Bill. So this guy has no self-esteem. He's hopelessly in love. And she is always climbing after these better, richer guys and sleeping with them. And that's essentially cuckoldry. I mean, I'm not married or anything, but that almost makes it worse. Like when we see him as the limo driver at the end, I guess we're supposed to be thrilled that she now speaks French and is with this, it's like a real Anna Nicole Smith kind of relationship, like this ancient guy, this ancient French dude. But yeah, it's when it's revealed that Albert is the driver, it feels like it's supposed to be a laugh line. It doesn't feel dark in the way that like, oh, she's going to continue to do this and it's a really bad thing. It ends on a comedic note, but it's not funny and it's not quite tragic either. It's just kind of like, I'm glad this movie's over.
Well, you're right, because here they are in Paris at the horse race and they see a horse win. And it turns out that, Lily, Lil, excuse me, is standing with the horse. You're like, what the heck? And so our guy who's back with Irene, he's sitting with who is it? It might be Gerst. I think it's Gerst.
Yeah.
Or no, or it
No,
might
it's
be
it's
it's her
Mr.
dad.
Mr.
It's his
Yeah,
dad. Yeah.
yeah.
So he and his dad are in the stands, and Irene and that, and they're enjoying the horse race. And the dad's looking through the goggles, and he sees her. He sees
I
Lil,
love this bit though.
and it's it's actually a beautiful bit because he's looking and he gets concerned at first, and then he kind of elbows his son, and his son looks and he goes, "Oh, look at that!" It's like she's still at it, and then they kind of smile at each other. It's like they almost said something to Irene, and they're just like, "Yeah, nah, we're just gonna let her," and they're chuckling at the guy who's with her. Boy, he's gonna have his hands full, and they find it humorous.
But I think
Well,
it is
and
so
also
great.
Bill slyly slides the
Yeah.
binoculars
Yes,
over
he
away for
slightly
her.
moves the binoculars away. That was the part of the bit that I liked.
Oh yeah, because he put the binoculars down, and then his wife sits down. And he's just like, "Yeah, nah, you don't need
Nothing to see here. Move along.
Nothing to see here. No,
She's distracted. Let me just move this here so she doesn't see any of this.
she doesn't. She doesn't need to see any of that. Yeah,
And that was the shocking thing man, this movie just ends abruptly because you just have her pulling out the gun and shooting him in the car. The car smashes into a lamppost. You see the newspaper guys running around. You find out via the newspapers that he's not going to press charges. What? and then it just cuts to France for the last 2 minutes, and that's it. To the point where I was like, "Oh, wait a second, what just happened here?" And I rewound it. I'm like, "That am I missing something, or is that just the end? It just ended right there."
The not pressing charges thing, I'm pretty sure that was, he survived, and I think, Irene was there by his side. I'm inferring all this, but by not pressing charges, he never has to see her again. He's like, I don't want to go through the court thing. He was for serious when he said, "This is the last conversation we're ever going to have. I never have to think about you again." And I was surprised that he did survive. I mean, because she shot into that car like a few times. I thought that both Irene and Bill had gotten it.
yeah.
I was kind of relieved that they were. I mean, it's a strange movie. I like if you take out the main character. I really like what's going on.
Well,
with
and
this marriage.
it is one of those movies you're not supposed to like the main character, though. I mean, you're
Right, but I
But-
mean, there's so much more interesting stuff going on with the people in the periphery. Like Irene and Bill's marriage goes through a lot in this film, and that is the happy ending that I kind of responded to, because you don't get the feeling that Bill is going to stray. Lily Red has some kind of charm, and maybe he'll encounter this later on in life, but you kind of get the feeling that he's really learned his lesson. I like to believe so.
Yeah.
But yeah, wow.
Well, and let's, and again, why we're doing the rated PC for Precode, because it's before film. You watch this film, there's a lot of racy stuff in here. Like there's a scene in here where Lil is with her friend Sally in the same room, and she walks up and she's like, "Oh, hey, I can't wear these pajamas." She's looking at her friend Sally's pajamas and going, "I need those." So they do this pajama swap, and the camera waits till just as they take their tops off and then kind of pans up a little bit just so that they're out of frame. And then you get other scenes like when Lil is wearing a dress and she stands in front of the sunlit window and goes, "Can you see through this?" And I'm just watching this going, wow.
That's like the first thing in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, can you see through this dress? Yeah, I think I'll have it then.
Well, and then there's the other line too, which it was deliberate, and I'm like, wow, even in 1932, they do the line. She goes, "Well, I can take dictation," and I'm like, what?
Yes, right at the beginning. Again,
I'm like looking at it going,
wink,
Wait.
wink. You know what I mean by that?
because when she leaves and tries to get a job, and I actually rewound it going, wait, did she just use? Oh yeah, she went there already.
That's why I said at the beginning, I love that this movie was ballsy in that way to actually try to push the envelope. But yeah, there were a lot of times where, like Mark, I was like, okay, this movie's only 80 minutes. Why am I like, come on, move along here? Because it felt episodic in some ways. It felt like it was just, one vignette after another.
And it really was that as she made her way, in and around and up and down. I mean, I guess that's supposed to be the fascination. Like, oh, is she really going to sleep with this old guy? And like, yeah, she will.
Yes, she will.
And she keeps, I guess like her evolution is like by the time the movie's over, she's with like Father Time. I mean, her marks keep getting older and older and older. But I did like the one line when she's talking to her roommate and I guess discussing her plans for how to get into Bill's life. And she says, if the boss's wife wants to keep the barn door wide open, what's to stop a girl from walking right in? There you go.
Well, that's what Joe says with this dialogue is amazing. There's another great line when she's entertaining the guests who are just humoring her and they leave and the one guy goes, yeah, she's strictly on the level like a flight of stairs. I'm like, wow.
That's what I was thinking. This does have charming dialogue. I do like that. I do like that aspect of it. But dialogue and performance alone couldn't really carry this for me because I like I said, it just felt like this bit ends, the next bit begins. This bit ends, the next bit begins.
Well, and then you get, I guess it almost felt like it was the other thing too. They were trying to land comedic beats in that she's with, which they cover the subject of divorce as well in here, which surprised me. I'm like, oh, we've actually got divorce court mentioned here, but she's with Bill, and it almost is kind of played as a comedic beat as Bill and Bill's dad are talking about the rich oil mogul. And you see Lil's ears perk up almost. Like she suddenly gets perked up and really wants to meet this guy. And you're just like, oh, great. Here we go. She's going to go to the next guy. And, it's almost trying to play as comedic, but it's more tragic. You kind of feel like it's like, the thing is, I get the impression that if Lil didn't try so hard, she might actually be able to be happy, not necessarily in a high society relationship, but just in a relationship. But she never seems legitimately, satisfied with what she has.
Well, go ahead, Mark. Go ahead, Ian.
I was going to say she's completely damaged. I mean, when he slaps her in a fit of rage, she says, "Do it again. I like it."
Yeah.
And like there's that whole like abuse scene and like what is going on with her?
And that transitioning for you think the sound is just him slapping her and transitions to the gavel hitting in the courtroom.
Yeah.
But I think what we would Lil is what we would call today someone who's emotionally unavailable. Somebody who is sexy, nice to look at, might be fun in bed. But you try to get into a relationship with this person, male or female, someone like that, you're just going to end up hurting yourself in the long run. There's someone who can't be satisfied with, and and that's your thing. Just know how to spot that. So if it bothers you, you don't get involved with someone like that.
and this is where I really like Una Merkel's performance as Sally, because her friend is like, you get the feeling her longtime friend has tried to tell Lil many times, quit doing what you're doing. What you're doing is not going to work out. She's trying to warn her friend. And then at one point you get the feeling like she's just like, yeah, no, I'm done warning her. I'm just going to go to the parties with her. And
she keeps, she's like a handbag. She just follows her wherever she goes, and these constant, we don't see her at the very end, but
no,
you get the feeling she's maybe waiting back at the house. No, it's what's interesting. We mentioned the divorce, and it's clear that Irene initiated it.
Yeah.
Which is something that was kind of surprised. I mean, it's strange that the strongest, female character in the movie is like the third supporting character, you know. But I really dug Irene. If this movie had been The Redheaded Woman, and it's how Lily broke up Bill and Irene, but then Lily disappears from the rest of the film, and it's just about how Bill and Irene try and put their marriage back together, I would have been like hooked. That's one of those things. Like, what is a reservoir dog? Doesn't matter. It's in the title, and it's not important to the movie. Kind of like the redheaded woman. She's introduced in 2 minutes, disappears completely, and the rest of the movie is how people deal with the aftermath, the wake of the redheaded woman.
Yeah. That probably would have been a more interesting story.
And then you could even still end it with, them seeing her later on elsewhere in France if you wanted. You have her at the beginning. You follow the chaos that ensued in society, in their societal circles, and the relationship between Irene and Bill, how they're just trying. And then at the end, they finally get everything worked out. They get to the racetrack, and oh look, there's the redheaded woman again. Like,
that's a perfect bookend.
Same thing she did before to another sucker.
Yeah. I'm going to say the gun pulling out thing was I wonder if that was one of the things from the original script that they left in, because, the producers said, yeah, Fitzgerald, this is way too not, we can't do this dark, because it's kind of out of nowhere too, because you're sitting there and all of a sudden she's just like, no, I'm tired, and she pulls out a gun, and I'm like, where the fuck did that come from?
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys, I felt like I missed something. Did they establish that?
I was like, I don't remember them establishing it, and I could be wrong.
No, they never established that she ever had a gun before. It's just kind of, maybe it's on the cutting room floor or something, but they never really established that she had a gun ever, or that she would have been driven that far. And even there, I'm like, that almost seemed a bit out of character for her to do the gun, to harm him that way. It was like a mixed bag with your redheaded woman. It's like, okay, she's been using, as Irene said, you caught him with sex, and sex don't last forever, okay, but then she pulls out a gun to try to keep. I'm like, okay, this kind of is out of character.
Yeah, she jumps very quickly. Very quickly to, if I can't have you, no one will.
Yeah,
like, it's just like on a dime. And I was just gonna say, maybe they just realized they're just like in this cycle in this movie. They're like, oh shit, we got to end it. Like, what are we gonna do? Have her pull out a gun.
It does feel like that completely. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because she jumps from guy to guy, and then she ends up trying to go back to Bill. It was like, okay, this didn't work. And then she goes back to Bill. But at no time, with the way she's written, all of it is for her. None of it is for her partner at the time. The status, the money. She shows up at Sally's salon late, driving up in that vehicle, blasting, which I thought she was driving up to a parade. Then I realized she's playing Sousa on the radio in that very fancy car. She's got a big dog, and then she shows up at the salon, and Sally's like, I got other customers, right? But it's all about her party, wanting to be accepted. It's not, she's, her, whatever guy she's with is just the hanger on for her to try to be this person that everybody sees her as not being.
There's an aspect of the hidden in this, jumping from body to body. Yeah. I was waiting for Michael Nouri and Kyle MacLachlan to show up, guns ablazing. That would have been fun.
With 32 though, I mean, we don't get anything too explicit, though. You get a lot of racy stuff that we mentioned. It is interesting how they handle the sexual implications of what happens, though. Like I said, with the old guy with Gerst, when she shows up and she's talking to him, and all of a sudden they cut back later and they're having a conversation, and he looks like like he's done something horrible. And she's talking to him about the party, and you're just like, oh, or like we mentioned earlier, when she shows up at her boss's, the door is shut, Irene goes in, and then she comes out, all disheveled, her clothes. And then, it happens later on as well again. And it's just like, wow. And like they do well with implying what happened.
Definitely.
Yeah, when she shows up in New York to Gerstie's penthouse or whatever, and he's like, tells the butler, "Oh, send her away," and I'm traveling, or no, I'm leaving tomorrow. She hears all that. She confronts him on the balcony, and once again, it's the same thing with the photograph and the stocking thing. Like, that should be a giant red flag. Like, no, you're now breaking into my house. You know I don't want to see you. Go away. But she ends up melting in his arms, and he kind of like shows all this affection towards her. I'm like, this really is like a psychic power or something she has. That I'd watch that movie with great delight, but not this.
It's her sexual power, the cautionary tale of the redheaded woman, of the loose woman. If you let her into your life at all, or even acknowledge her, she is going to ruin your life.
So why? Here's my question. This has come up before on these Precode movies. Why did we need the Hays Code? Who's going to watch Redheaded Woman and think, oh man, all this violence and sex and treachery, these are really cool things? No, this is the exact movie people need to watch. There's moralizing in the sleaze.
Well, it's kind of like, the people who watch Scarface and Goodfellas, the 83 Scarface I'm talking about, and Goodfellas and Wolf of Wall Street, and they'll watch it and they'll be like, man, this life is awesome. This lifestyle seems so great. I'm going to end it right here at the 2-hour mark and not look at anything that happens after, because this is perfect. This is the life I want. And I think that's why the Hays Code decided that. I mean, and as far as like how explicit it is, there's more explicit movies than this out there. From Birds of Paradise has a lot more nudity and sex in this movie.
Right.
Sign of the Cross is believed to be the one that actually drove them over the edge with the orgy scenes and the milk bath scene. So, like this. I mean, we look at it as, wow, this is 1932. In terms of some of the other movies that came out around this time, it seems a little tame. Even the violence, you have a little bit of violence at the end, but it doesn't compare to, Public Enemy, Little Caesar, Scarface, any of those movies that were coming around this time. So, as far as the implications of sex, Madam X, I think, takes it a lot further. Mm-hmm. Madam X, they straight up talk about her having orgies in Paris. So there's like.
Those didn't get voted on.
Madam X. Yeah.
That's 1929.
Yeah, those didn't get voted on when we did our poll, which, by the way, folks, for the Overhill special next year, quick plug, go over to specialmarkproductions.com and let your voice be heard. You can do some fun voting this year and vote up to 12 films from 1975 you want us to cover next year for our special, like we're doing here today, this year with the Precode stuff. And yeah, you're right. There are other wilder films. It's just interesting that this is written, first it was written by Fitzgerald, and then they put it in front of to give it two female voices. And it's like, wow, did they not like a redheaded woman? I'm like sitting here going,
well, probably two women who have been jilted because of a woman like this, apparently.
You almost feel like
it's the same woman.
You almost feel like it's cathartic for Anita Loos, who wrote it. It's like, yeah, I've been jilted. Here, it's like
I knew a woman exactly like this.
Her name was Lily. No, actually, I just want to touch back on something because you brought up a good point, Joe, about those movies from the 80s and the 90s that glorified crime and people turning off at the 2-hour mark. Do you think that's why Scorsese opened Casino with Robert De Niro getting blown up?
Maybe. Because I always feel like when people talk about Scarface and they, I'm like, did you watch the whole movie? Did you see what happened? Like at the end, that's not a glorious ending for Tony Montana. Henry Hill. What happens to Henry Hill at the going into hiding and having to live in fear for the rest of his life?
Jordan Belfort having to be a seminar, like hawking products at seminars.
Yeah, sell me this pen. That's. I feel like, but also at the same time, I'm a big firm believer in artistic freedom for directors. So I'm glad that Scorsese and De Palma got to make the movies they wanted the way they wanted, and yeah.
What's fun that brings it back around a little bit is Anita Loos. The film pretty much opens with Lil saying, they say gentlemen prefer blondes. Anita Loos would 20 years later write gentlemen prefer blondes.
It's great.
And then gentlemen prefer brunettes right after it. Or marry brunettes.
Which I didn't know existed.
Yeah, gentlemen marry brunettes, and is after gentlemen prefer blondes. But I just found it interesting that Anita Loos, who rewrote The Redheaded Woman and opens the film with gentlemen prefer blondes 20 years later, would write the screenplay based off the musical.
That's a long way to go for a payoff. She was really playing the long game.
It all comes back around, but she's got 142 films to her credit. She was writing films up through 1961. It looks like Anita Loos was. So, yeah, she was very prolific. She had a quite extensive. She wrote a lot of films in the early 1900s.
One of my friends, Melissa Moreno, also Milwaukee area, commented on my post about this. Such a great body Precode film, so she's a fan of it, and she's actually somebody who I love talking to about Precode movies. Melissa watches a lot of them, and I've found myself discussing them with her back and forth through our DMs. So
cool.
She's apparently a fan of this movie. I kind of in the middle on it. I like the dialogue. I like the snappiness of it. I felt storytelling wise, it was a little weak, but to each their own.
Yeah. What's your final thought with this one, Ian?
I mean, the thing is, I had such an allergic reaction to the main character that I had a hard. I agree with you, Joe. I agree with a lot of what we've been talking about, on the show tonight. It's well put together. It is kind of repetitive. But, I think for the time, I could see people going into a theater, watching this kind of like a fresh and daring take on, on a woman making her way to the top by any means necessary. Hey. And that's fine. It's hard. It's one of those cases hard for me in 2024 with all the movies I've seen and, seeing more well-rounded versions of this kind of character, to see someone who's just so kind of one note and unpleasant for 80 minutes that if I ever to watch it again knowing what I was in for, I probably still would key in more on some of the supporting performances. But yeah, I can recommend it. I just didn't enjoy watching it.
Well, the characters are fascinating. You don't watch this really for the story. I really like the characters and the situation, how they handle the situations they're in, more so than the overall story, because there really isn't much of a story here. It's just her, home wrecking one guy after another. Basically,
yes, that's what it is.
That's what it is. So as far as that goes, so it is just the characters. But yeah, if you like Jean Harlow, I mean, she does put an excellent performance, even though the way her character is written isn't great. It's one note and there is no arc with her character, really. Jean does a great performance in here as this person, but at the same time, she's just not written to be liked, really, is what it is. So,
Ian, you said this is your first Jean Harlow movie. You've never seen The Public Enemy? James Cagney?
I don't. Wow. No, I haven't. Yeah.
That's a great one. Probably the best movie I'd say she was ever in. She though I looked, she was in Scarface, but she was in a bit role where we probably didn't even. She's blonde at the Blonde at the Casino. So I'm like, okay, we're not going to count that one.
I do love some of the credits that they gave someone, like Henry Armetta. At one point, Lil confronts Bill in the phone booth, and she ends up kissing him quite a bit. And then he gets out, and he's got lipstick on his cheek, and he's got to go back to his wife Irene because they're at dinner. And the waiter so goes, "Sir," and he points to his cheek, and he gives him, and he helps Bill wipe the lipstick off of his cheek, and he's literally labeled as waiter warning Bill of lipstick because he's uncredited. So IMDb basically just describes him as waiter warning Bill of lipstick.
And that's somebody who would, recognize these like 1930s actors by face and something else they're in. And I mean, there are records. So there are records as far as like who played what, but that's amazing that somebody actually pulled that out and put that on IMDb.
So that's really cool. But yeah, it was a mixed bag for me with this. I mean, I didn't not enjoy the film. I'll put it that way. I didn't mind watching it. I didn't feel like I wasted my time at all. It was an interesting film and an interesting window into this time period, basically giving you the story of a very promiscuous gold digger, for lack of a better term. But I mean, if there was ever a definition,
it would be this one. Yeah,
it would fit. But she's written that way on purpose because you get the feeling this is supposed to be the cautionary tale of, guys, stay away from the promiscuous woman, because she may give you a pleasure right now, but she's going to be a headache for you later. And that's what
herpes. Let's not forget herpes.
They didn't have that in the
back 30s. Then. Probably worse. Probably syphilis.
They didn't have that back in the 30s.
They had syphilis in the 30s. Al Capone died of it.
Shh. No, they didn't have it. They did not have that in the. Okay, so there you have it, folks. A redheaded woman. Watch it for the people and an interesting window into that time period and what they considered a comedy, which I honestly didn't laugh much. I'm like, this is, it surprised me. It said comedy in the description because I'm like, really? But so now this is a Precode film. And like we have done with every Precode film, we like to spin our wheel of random. Now, we have 4 films left, but only 3 are on the wheel. Why? Because I've decided to make the producer decision. Because I produce and host and basically, it's my show, damn it. I figured Maniac month will be October, everyone. So October will be Maniac month. It is the most appropriate thing for the month. I didn't want to risk the wheel of random not picking Maniac for October because I thought it was very appropriate. So more details next month on what we're going to cover in October. I'm very excited about that one. But here we are. Night Nurse, The Little Giant, and Blonde Venus are our 3 films that we're going to pick. And one of these will be our film for next month, which will also determine our theme for next month. So it goes around, and The Little Giant.
So I'm assuming the Edward G. Robinson Little Giant.
Yes, 1933, Edward G. Robinson, The Little Giant, which means that next month is going to be a dry month, folks. It's a dry month. How is it a dry month? It's going to be a dry month because we're going to be covering films dealing with the Prohibition. So,
right.
The Little Giant, 1933. Then we're also going to cover The Untouchables from 1987. Right. We're going to look at Robin and the Seven Hoods from 1964.
One of my favorite musicals.
And Once Upon a Time in America, 1984.
My favorite movie ever.
I'm gonna have to start watching that now. Isn't that like 17 hours long?
4 hours, like 4 hours long. Oh, okay. Woo!
So covering films that involve Prohibition.
I'm gonna miss 2 of them
after Prohibition, but so that's what we're gonna be covering next month, folks. So it's going to be a dry month. September's dry. No alcohol allowed.
Oh,
so there you go. Though I'll still be drinking, but
okay, good.
I'll still drink.
Another producer decision.
It's another producer. That's the theme. It doesn't mean I'm going to not have a drink. Silly. What the
As long as
hell?
you're drinking Wisconsin-bly.
I'm drinking Wisconsin. Yes, so that's going to be next one. So it's an interesting variety of films. Looking forward to those. So yeah,
I've seen all 4.
well, there you go. So yeah, I'm excited to look at those tales of post. Most of them are one deals with prohibition, but most of them are like post-prohibition results. So the Little Giant, Robin and the Seven Hoods, kind of near the end of prohibition, and also Once Upon a Time in America. So I'm not sure what weeks those will play yet. Look for the schedule on Special Mark Productions on which weeks we'll have which films. So now is where I always give my wonderful, talented crew the license to shill. Ian, you're first tonight. Go ahead. What do you got to shill, sir?
I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com and also right here on YouTube. We do interviews and movie reviews and weekly live streams. And this Wednesday night, we'll be talking Alien Romulus at 8 p.m. Can't wait. Yeah, I'm also here every Monday talking movies with Mark and Joe most of the time. So I love this. It's my favorite thing to do all week, aside from my own show.
We appreciate that. We appreciate having you here, being a regular for pretty much 4 years now straight. You've been a regular here, and appreciate that. And I haven't chased you away yet, so it says something.
No. Wild horses, Mark, could not drag me away.
And Mr. Joe Randazzo, please shill away whatever you'd like, sir.
Well, I'm with the Literary License Podcast, where we cover book to screen and everything in between. We've moved on to the New Adventures of Batman because or the New Adventures of Batman and Robin or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Follow up to Batman the Animated Series.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be covering holidays and Tales from the Hood for our the finale of our anthology films season, and also we'll be doing Remake, The Parent Trap, and its remake. And then next month we're beginning our 8th season, and the themes are going to be the monthly themes. I will be covering the Rise and Fall of Bela Lugosi, where we're starting in 1920 with him still working in Hungarian films, then working our way, weaving through his career. Sean Steffen, who was on the show last week, will be leading us talking about the career of David Lynch, and we'll be going film by film with him. Keith Chago's selection will be covering the films of Paul Verhoeven. So we'll be starting with Turkish Delight and Soldier of Orange next month. I'm not going to be here at the beginning of September because actually Celeste from Hex and Arcane, she and I were cast in Lloyd Kaufman's new film, The Power of Positive Murder. So we're going to be flying out to New York on the 2nd and then coming back, and then I'll be flying back on the 9th. Both times, though, it's a night flight, so I'm going to be missing both of those. And it's going to be a shame because I'm going to be missing 2 films that I would love to talk about, no matter what the order. The Last Drive-In, I actually just got a gift from Joe Bob Briggs himself because I finished up my first season on The Last Drive-In. I go out to check the mail and I see a box from Fright Rags with the Last Drive-In insignia on it. And I'm like, oh, somebody else in the building, a fan of the show? And I go, look, and it's addressed to me. And then when I open it up, there's a handwritten letter from Joe Bob Briggs thanking me for my work. And I was
That is awesome.
Overjoyed.
Yeah.
And I guess I will shill that. The all-night marathon is going to be a week from Friday, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. I think it's 8 p.m. Eastern, and it's going to be 6 movies, so it's going to be going on all well into the morning. So
with Joe Bob interjecting his wonderful knowledge on each one.
Yes, and it was a pleasure working on a couple of those movies. One in particular, I can't say what it is because they keep the films a secret. But one in particular, really, when when I finished that, I thanked them for letting me work on that one, because I got to like really dive deep into one and really learn a lot about, just the craft of writing, just seeing all the stuff that was just in there that I maybe never noticed before on the film. So, but also thank you again, Mark. I'll be back next week. And
Awesome.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to miss 2 weeks, and it's going to suck for me. But
well, you'll be with us in spirit anyway. And thank you for our live watchers. And if you're at all interested, specialmarkproductions.com for all your Movie Man needs. We got links to everything that we do there. Since I'm dancing COVID a go-go, though I'm feeling okay, I'm not sure if I'll get some reviews up, but I've got a number of reviews on deck. And a film that I meant to see in the theater. I didn't. I watched it on streaming, and oh my God, I wish I would have seen it in the theater. And I may even review that one. Kill. It's a Bollywood action film. Oh, wow.
a few people recommended that to me. I got to check it out.
That film, I've watched many, many, many films in many years, and there's very few action films to where I was holding my breath because I was watching the brutality that was happening. But Bollywood, again, delivering a wonderfully disturbing, dark action film that is like Die Hard on nitrous. It's insane. But really, it's got a story to it as well. And it's just, I was like, I was just riveted the whole time. And I'm just like, oh man. And just when you think you saw the more brutal like fight scene, they're like, no, that wasn't nothing. I got something else for you. It's like, oh man. So yeah, Kill. There you go. My recommendation. I'll shut up now. I thank you all for tuning in. We are really close to hitting our goal of 3,000 subscribers before the end of the year. I want to thank you all for spreading the word about our channel. I just want to take a moment because I did not expect this growth that I have. We may very well hit it by the end of September if the trend keeps going, which is hilarious because we started out the year at 2,500. So for me, that's huge, considering how crowded the field is now. Just like with podcasting, I appreciate, even if it's just one person watching and spending our little time on the sliver of the internet. So until next time, which hopefully I'll be feeling a little better, we'll just say good night, everyone.
Good night.